Okay, I found an old video I shot, and I want to use a fragment of it to talk about the evolution fraud. Now, this is a mainline exhibit that traveled the country about 2 years ago, and it was about the Ice Age. And you're going to see some mammoths and some mastodons, a cave bear, but then in a few minutes it's going to go on to two skulls. And I'm going to talk while it's running through the skulls, and I'm going to switch to a board and talk about some stuff. But so the two skulls, one's a Cro-Magnon or modern man, and the other is a Neanderthal. Now they're side by side. They made the mistake of making the plastic covers over them where you could walk around them and look at them. And that's where they made the mistake. And I pointed out to a whole bunch of people there, and I think I turned some people over to the right way of thinking here. So anyway, and here's the first one was a mammoth. This is a mastodon. So anyway, these two skulls. The difference between a Neanderthal skull and a Cro-Magnon skull is the obvious ridge brows, and it's got a larger brain case. 10 to 15% larger. So, and then after you see the skulls, I'm going to show the artist representations of each right beside it. Now, the artist drew the Cro-Magnon or Homo sapien sapien, as they like to call it, just like a modern person. The Neanderthal man, they made him more ape-like, more brutish. They almost gave him an ape snout. It almost looks like he's got a dog face. Yet, if you look at the side, it doesn't protrude any more than the standard skull right next to it. So they can't even help themselves sometimes. They'll bring up artist renditions of all kinds of things. They color, and these kids are thinking, wow, we must have come from monkeys because they said so in the museum. They're just lying. Remember, the people that run the world are Satanists. They believe in God. They believe in a devil. They also, their foot soldiers may believe in evolution, but the ones that are in charge actually believe they believe in divinity and darkness. And they push evolution because it makes you look like an insignificant piece of protoplasm with no meaning in life. And it's a shame, because that's how they get by. If one of the bases of everything is that here come the skulls. So the Neanderthals here, and it's got the more pronounced ridge brow and the larger brain cavity. And from the side, you see it's not any more pronounced in the front than the human skull. And a funny thing about your ridge brow, it grows all your life. It's more pronounced in a man. If you'll notice, older people end up getting a real craggy-looking face. My ridge brow, I'm in my mid-50s, and it's more pronounced than it was in my 20s. I believe that the Neanderthal skulls were all pre-flood human beings that died in the flood. But you can see how much larger the skull is. So it's a much more robust individual. And the people that push this will tell you, well, the average Neanderthal could have manhandled the average Cro-Magnon man easily. And well, yeah, he could have, because he was getting superior nutrition before the flood. And here's a top picture of the skull, the brain cavity being much larger on the Neanderthal. I want to cover some other stuff here. So let's go through the evolutionary lies. The evolutionary tree, much of it has been debunked. Java Man, Lucy's just a monkey. Peking Man was found out to be a hoax. Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man, Heidelberg Man. Those were all found to be hoaxes. And Darwinism was embraced in England when it came out because at the time the Britons were subjugating a lot of African colonies, and they said it was the reason they could do it is because they were less evolved. And here's them turning the Neanderthal man into giving him a snout like a wolf, basically. And then they go on about various other things that are just kind of made up in this exhibit. I want to get back to so Darwinism was embraced because at the time England was subjugating the African colonies, and to soothe their minds, they embraced it to say that, well, they're just less evolved animals, and that's why we can get away with it. And some of the people that came out of that was a lady named Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Sanger was a hero of Hillary Clinton, and she even says it. You can look it up on YouTube. Well, Margaret Sanger used to go to Klan rallies, and she wanted to exterminate the black race. And she even says a couple of direct quotes are, "We have to get rid of the nigger children." That's her words. And so Hillary Clinton talks about how she's such a great person and Planned Parenthood is just helping everybody. Well, it's killing a lot of people. It's killing babies, and some of the people that have helped perpetrate the fraud of evolution, I'm going to go over here, but I want to bring up a man's name, Ota Benga. Ota Benga was a pygmy who was basically taken captive around 1910, or excuse me, 1900. And he was transported to the St. Louis Zoo. And he was kept in a zoo exhibit. Now, he couldn't communicate with anybody, and they wouldn't let him go. And he was kept as an exhibit, and he finally committed suicide. He couldn't talk to anybody. Nobody could talk to him. He's basically kept captive. He's in a weird place. People are mocking him, looking at him. And, yeah, that happened. Look it up, Ota Benga in the St. Louis Zoo. So they kept this poor guy in here, and nobody did anything about it. So there you go. Anyway, some of the people that push, it's actually eugenics and evolution, because eventually evolution leads to, well, we've got to get rid of old people, and we've got to euthanize people, and we've got to get rid of Down children syndrome people, and people that just don't think like we do, and you end up with Hitler. Killing Jews, killing gypsies, killing blacks, and that's the end result of embracing evolution. You can deny it all you want. Stalin was an evolutionist. Mao was an evolutionist. Pol Pot was an evolutionist, and they all those are the biggest mass murderers in history. So Eugene Dubois was involved in where he shaved down a gibbon skull and added some jaws, and he perpetrated one of the frauds. Ernst Haeckel. It's a funny thing about Ernst Haeckel. I'll go back to some of that video that's still going here. So Ernst Haeckel had a theory called phylogeny recapitulates ontology, and he came out with this right after microscopes came out. And he ran with it for a couple of years till more people had access to microscopes. And then they called him out on it. He was a fraud. By then he sold a bunch of books and made some money. But basically the theory behind that was that human embryo goes through all these stages, and it goes through a fish, reptile, lizard, whatnot. And that was proved wrong over 175 years ago. It's still in the textbooks. They still put it in there. His name was Ernst Haeckel, and another thing trying to save Darwinism was Stephen Jay Gould and his hopeful monster, another name for the punctuated equilibrium. And his theory behind that was, well, they move evolution so fast it doesn't leave any. The changes are so great that we can't find any parts of it because it happens so fast, it changes so fast, the jumps are so big. Okay, you can believe that if you want. And anyway, so Margaret Sanger, like I said, she was really big into evolution and killing black people. And I don't know, it happened sometime during the LBJ. The Democratic Party hijacked actually the Republican platform. Now this is I got this at the War Museum of the Pacific. It's an ad, and it's a Republican. They're making fun of a Republican because he's going for the rights of black people. Now, somehow in the 60s, LBJ convinced all the black people that Republicans hated them, even though they're the ones that, the party of Lincoln freed the slaves. And it still kind of boggles the mind how, if you look at the quotes of LBJ on it, he's making fun of it, actually. So check that out. But remember, evolution is to make you feel like you're an insignificant blob of protoplasm. And it's a lie from the pit of hell. Thank you. I'm out.